I'm James.
And I'm Janice.
And we're the Werner siblings. So, on today's episode, we're going to be sharing with you stories from our work that drove us completely bonkers.
So what we'll do first is we'll give you a brief description of what we do, and we'll go from there. James, how about you start?
So, what I do is I work at a Panera Bread, and if you live under a rock, that happens to be a bakery cafe chain that that serves various different types of pastries and soups and salads and other things. And most of my experiences come from working with customers that come up to the cash register, and you can guess if you've ever worked in retail that those are crazy. Janice, tell us a little about where you work.
I'm a teen librarian in a public library, and you could only imagine what shenanigans go down after school every day.
Janice is going to start us off, and then you'll hear my story in just a little bit.
So basically, this happened last year, and we had a big problem with kids sitting in the aisles in between the bookshelves, and...
So they're reading books in between?
No.
Aisles?
They are not reading books. They are sprawling themselves across the ways and doing anything but like something scholarly. Sometimes they are, but usually they're not. They're hanging out. It's like, anyway. So I was constantly telling them, guys, this is a fire hazard. You gotta move somewhere else. Just go somewhere. And what did they do? They're like, yeah. So, this one day, I was doing a little patrol, because I heard kids laughing, and it just so happened to be one of my, regulars. And I see this group of, 6 or 7 kids in the aisle, and they look at me, and I look at them, and I'm like, guys, you know what I'm about to say. We know it's a fire hazard, we'll move. And then they start chit-chatting, trying to, smooth talk me or something.
You'd think they'd catch on by now that you're gonna come over there and tell them. I mean, how many times did you come over and tell this to them? Too many times.
But one of the kids was talking to me, and then he was trying to explain why they were there, or we're gonna leave now. And then this other kid starts dragging his friend down the way to the other side, and the guy's like, no, don't take me, no, as he turns the corner, and the rest of us were dying of laughter. Just dying. I was gonna hyperventilate at some point.
I don't remember this story. I don't feel like you told this to me.
Oh, God. My coworkers didn't think it was that funny. My friend sure did, and obviously he does, so I hope you thought that was a funny story. James, let's hear yours.
Once a week, I open. If you don't know what that is, that means you go in early in the morning before the store actually opens, and you set things up. So we get there it's 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and something was wrong with the heat. It was beastly hot. It was 85.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was cold.
Nope, beastly hot. 85 degrees in our cafe, and the bakers had left the oven door open for some reason too. Yeah, exactly. We were walking in there, we were sweating, we were just like, oh my God.
Sauna!
Ugh.
Rip it all off, people!
We could not, work was awful. Setting up, putting things up was just ugh. Oh, do I have to reach that high? Oh. We're dying, and the manager at the time, who's not there anymore, he's not a general manager, just an assistant, we'll call him Scott. Scott decides he's going to put the air conditioning on because, well, yeah, we're dying. We were melting. Melting, I tell you. It was awful. I mean, it's only 3 of us there, so it's not like it's a big deal. It's not like customers are going to freeze to death. So we're still sweating. So 7 o'clock rolls around, and a customer comes in and orders... Oh, man, I almost forgot this part of the story. She was a problem. So... she orders a cappuccino, but all foam. Now, if you guys don't know what a cappuccino is a double shot of espresso or a single shot, depending on the size that you're going for in whatever cafe you're going in. Half of the rest of the cup is filled up with steamed milk, which is just hot milk, and the other half is foamed milk. So we have actually a very normal method for making this, and it's not very difficult to do. But when customers ask for more foam, it gets more tricky because you need more milk to do that. And so you're wasting milk if you're using too much milk. Then it's just sitting there and it's hot and it doesn't stay well. It doesn't keep very well. So you have to get rid of it. Yeah. So I do a cappuccino and I make it with extra foam, you know, using more milk than I normally would. And she comes back and says there's too much milk in it. And
Oh my God.
I'm thinking to myself, like, is she out of her mind? Like, it was like mostly foam there. And we remake it for her, of course, as we're prone to do.
Policy.
But on that first trip, she also mentions that it's cold. Now, remember, it had been 85 degrees in our store just 2 hours before. It was not all of a
I thought
sudden.
you meant that the milk was cold.
No.
Okay.
No. She was complaining about the temperature of the cafe. It was just 85 degrees.
Ugh.
And so she's cold now. And so I go to the back to tell my manager a customer's cold. And he's just like, well, that's funny because we're still sweltering up here. And he said, just tell her we'll take care of it. And I'm just like, right.
That's code word for we'll just say it.
Yeah.
But we ain't gonna do anything.
Right, because it's not cold. I remake the drink for her, and I go walking around looking for her. I can't find her. Can't find her. She's somewhere else. At least I think. I think she left. I walked around the entire cafe, had no idea where she was. I was walking around with this latte in my hand, going like, where are you, lady? And so, a half hour later, she comes up to the counter and says, I never got my remake of my latte. I was just like, where were you? I was like, where have you been? I was looking for you. Obviously, I said, oh, yeah, well, now it's cold, obviously, so I'll just remake it again. I was a little frustrated at this point. So I finally, when I re-delivered it to her, I used so much milk and made it all foam. It was just foam, and of course it was perfect for her.
No!
I don't know how she drank it. There was no milk. It was just espresso with a bunch of on the top. But that's what she wanted. But when I found her that second time, she had a scarf all over her head. She's like bundled up at this table. And I'm thinking, well, no wonder I didn't see her. No wonder. She was an Eskimo, basically. So impossible to see. So, after that, she also mentioned again that it was cold. And I said, yes, we're taking care of it. So at that point, it was getting
a little chilly.
Room temperature a little bit colder.
Oh.
So I said, yeah, we'll just, I'll mention it to my manager again, that you're still cold, blah, blah, blah. So I went back to him, and she says she'd like to speak with him. And so I bring him out to her, and he talks to her. Don't know what he said. But then he comes back to me, and he says, oh my God. And so I was just like, yeah, I know.
Been there.
Done that. Meanwhile, the temperature had leveled out, and it really wasn't, it was getting cooler, but it was fine. It wasn't freezing, though. I could understand, though, how she was cold. The phone rings. The phone. So I go over to and answer it like it's any other, phone call. I say, thank you for calling Panera Bread. This is James speaking. How may I help you? And she said, hi, James. This is the lady that you spoke to before about being cold. Now, mind you, her table is right there. Counter's here, 10 feet over, her table.
No!
Right there.
No!
Right there. She's calling me from her table. From her table.
Oh my God!
I don't know what she was worried about.
Keep going.
I don't know what her problem was. Apparently, she didn't have her snow boots with her, so she couldn't walk over to the counter She's calling me on the phone to tell me that it's cold. This is me. Oh. I literally said this. This was not an exaggeration. Oh. Okay. I just said, yeah, we're taking care of it, miss. And but the thing was, is that this was like hours later. You know, she had been sitting there for hours. If she was that uncomfortable, why didn't she leave? If she was that uncomfortable, she could have gone somewhere else. Like, she was sitting there for hours, enduring the cold. That was my story.
Great story!
Yeah, I haven't seen her again, so to wrap this episode up, leave us a comment down below. Tell us one of your work stories.
Something that made you laugh.
Something that made you cry.
Something that made you happy.
Something that made you mad.
Or whatever you felt.
And as always, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up.
And if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button down below and ring the bell.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Werner Siblings. So in today's episode, we were sporting different teas than yesterday. Today, I'm drinking a Pu'er tea. It's a little bit stronger than a chamomile. Janice, what are you drinking?
I am drinking the same tea I drank the other day.
I was wrong.
Red Rose. You were wrong.
I was wrong. She said it was her go-to, after all.
It is my go-to.
All right.